Hi everyone. I wanted to give you the answers so that you could grade your own on Monday Block 1. Here it's asking us to find f at -2. So I like to put in just parentheses. And then I'm going to be putting in to the blank -2 into my little parenthesis that I've set up. And then however you would like to do it, with your calculator would be great, or with your head. I guess I'm going to have to do mine with my head because my calculator is not here at my station anymore. I wonder where it went. So -2 to the third is -2 times -2 times -2, which is -8. Take away 125, all divided by -2 to the second is 4 minus 25. And so then I have -8 minus 125. I feel like I need to get out some of my fingers here. So that's -133. And then 4 take away 25, I bet I could do that, is -21. And then a negative divided by a negative reduces. And I don't know if the 133 and the 21 reduce with one another or not. But I did find a calculator, so now I do. They do. It's 19/3. So we did a nice job on that one. Remember that you're here to verify. So I'm hoping that you've done this first, that you've given it a try and see how you do. And if you can't do them at first, maybe you go back and look at my video, or maybe you go back and look at the video that's made by your textbook. I wanted to tell you the code word for Monday Block 1. The code word is going to be monkey. M-O-N-K-E-Y, right? Monkey is going to be the word. Okay, so now here it's asking me to find the domain for f. And the domain is whatever values would be okay for me to put in for x. And so everything is okay except for the denominator can't be 0. So it's x squared minus 25 is not supposed to be equal to 0. So if I factor that, that's a difference of squares. So that's a DOS, right? XX 5, a plus and a minus equals 0, doesn't equal 0. I don't want that to equal 0. So x plus 5, I don't want that to equal 0, and x minus 5, I don't want that to equal 0, because I don't want the denominator to be equal to 0. So I want to pick anything except for these values. So I'm not going to pick -5, and I'm not going to pick +5. So in your fancy notation that your book uses, the set of x such that, for the domain, x is not -5, comma 5. So those two things, x is not. Then the next problem asks us to reduce it. And so how you reduce it is you factor the numerator and you factor the denominator. So in my factoring story over here, x cubed minus 125, I asked myself, hey, that's a binomial. Are you a difference, or do you have a greatest common factor? No. Are you a difference of squares? No. Are you a cube? And it's a cube if you can write this such that it's something to the third. And so certainly it is. It's 5 to the third. And then you can whip out your formula, or you can sing your song, whichever one that you like. So if you're a formula user, then we know that it's going to look like this. A cubed minus b cubed, because I have to make sure I have minus in there, equals a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. That's the formula. And everywhere you see a, you're going to be putting in x. So this is going to be x. And everywhere you see b, you're going to be putting in 5. So x minus 5, and then x squared plus x times 5 plus 5 squared. And then you got to clean it up. So x minus 5 times x squared plus 5x plus 25. Your choice on whether or not you sing a little song or if you use the formula. You guys were liking using the formula, and since you got notes, I can see why. Okay, and so this is my numerator. So x minus 5 times x squared plus 5x plus 25. Then my denominator is x squared minus 25, and I want to factor it. And so we kind of have this same problem, right, with basically the same problem with the three different directions that we were taught about in chapter 7.1. And so this is a difference of squares, and so x, a plus and a minus, and what times what would make 25, 5 times 5, and that's your denominator. So this is, over here is my curtain of my work, right, of me factoring it. But here is what I wanted, was the factored results. There are some people that have practiced their factoring so much that they can go right from here to here, and that's wonderful. And so now I'm here to reduce, and only things that are exactly the same size and exactly the same would reduce. So x minus 5 would reduce with x minus 5. When you divide those, because they're equal, you get 1. Notice it's all a multiply, and so it's okay for me to do the division because multiplication and division are on the same line in the order of operations. And so in the numerator, I get this trinomial that will not factor, we remember, and I get this binomial in the denominator. We remember that the trinomial in this formula does not factor. Okay, we did a lovely job on page 1 there. Problems 1, 2, and 3. Here's problem 4. It is asking us to simplify that problem 4. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to factor in order to simplify. So I'm going to be here on my sheet of paper, and I'm going to be factoring this trinomial. How you factor a trinomial is you first look and see if it has a greatest common factor. And it doesn't matter which one I factor first. So if it makes you feel happier to factor 9a to the third minus 4a before factoring this trinomial, either way, your choice. Factor either one, because we're going to have to factor both of them one at a time. So there is no greatest common factor here, so I'm making the first work a times 3a, and I'm making the last work 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. I know the signs are the same, and I know they're both negative. And I'm wanting them to add up to be 8. And I can see that if I put the 3 and the 4 together, that's too big, because 3 times 4 is 12. That's already bigger than 8. So I'm going to try the 2 and the 2, just because it doesn't seem like it'll get big enough if I only multiply the a times the 4 and the 3a times the 1. So I think I'm going to need the 2's. So I'm going to put in the first spot the a and the 3a, and then I'm going to put the minus 2 and the minus 2, and I'm going to just see, does it work? So obviously the first works, 3a squared. And the outer is minus 2a, and the inner minus 6a, and the last plus 4. So I didn't know for sure it was going to work. I was just hoping it would work, and now I can see, oh yeah, it does. So my numerator is a minus 2, 3a minus 2. And my denominator is going to be, anytime that you're factoring, you would find the greatest common factor. And the greatest common factor here is a. So I would pull out an a. So this is 9a squared minus 4. And it's still a binomial. I'm done with the a, right? If I wanted to come over here and put the a underneath so I don't forget it, I could, because I am certainly ignoring the a for a moment. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, you're a binomial and I already got out the greatest common factor. Are you a difference of squares, or are you a cube, or am I all done? And you're right, it's a difference of squares. So if you were yelling at your screen, it's a difference of squares, then I heard you. And I appreciate that. So 3a and 3a, a plus and a minus, and a 2 and a 2. So this is 3a plus 2 and 3a minus 2. And I'll bring that a down, right, as part of my answer, but I'd already had it over here where I wanted it. Now that a isn't going to cancel with anyone because it has to be exactly the same size to cancel and exactly the same. But this 3a minus 2 and this 3a minus 2 would reduce with one another. You cannot reduce this binomial and that binomial with one another, even though it is really fun to reduce things, because they're not exactly the same. And so this one is a minus 2, and this one's 3a plus 2. So even if they both have an a and they both have a 2, they're not exactly the same. So in the numerator, I have a minus 2 with or without parentheses. And in the denominator, I have a times 3a plus 2. And then that's just all done. And then one last problem, and then I'll do the I'll pause this video and then I'll do the other one. A bullet fired from a gun travels a distance of 4,500 feet in 3 seconds. Find the average speed of the bullet in feet per second. So this really helps us, the feet per second, because that tells us what you want to divide. You want to divide your 4,500 feet by your 3 seconds. And when you do that, that will be the speed of the bullet in feet per second. So 4,500 divided by 3, 1,500, right? So this is 1,500 feet per second. And I can write it like this. You can write the feet and the second like this. That's okay too. This is really common for putting it on one line, but you can write it like this too if that makes you happier. It's all good. Okay, we'll see you in the next video. I hope that you're doing well. Okay, bye-bye.